All right, everybody. Well, I think you've probably got a sense already of a little bit of the kind of tone of this talk. This dear man who's on the screen with me right now is one of my dearest friends. But before we talk about our kind of friendship and a little bit of our journey, I'd like to just tell you a little of Anthony's credits. Anthony Brandon Wong, is an award-winning actor who has played a wide range of roles in numerous films and more than 40 hit TV programs in the US, Canada, Asia, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and Africa. That's quite something. That's quite the banquet table of places in which to work out of. His film credits include The Matrix Reloaded, The Matrix Revolutions, The Invisible Man, Haywire, Guns, Girls and Gambling, Little Fish, and the list truly does go on and on. Anthony has won 3 Equity Ensemble Awards for his portrayal of Danny Law in 3 seasons of The Family Law. His stage credits include more than 30 productions of many of Australia's renowned companies, including the Sydney Theatre Company, the Melbourne Theatre Company, and the Malthouse. Anthony won the Victorian Green Room Award for Best Actor for Sex Diary of an Infidel. Anthony is also extremely proud of something that he most recently shot for the ABC. He is playing the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia in The PM's Daughter, which will be released sometime in 2022. Anthony's also an accomplished acting teacher who has trained many of Australia's acclaimed actors. Anthony, welcome, dear friend.
Thank you, my dear friend Lula. And for those of you who may not know, the reason I call Kim Lula is Kim and I had the same singing teacher, Bob Tasman Smith, and he had a vocal exercise like this. Lula, 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 lee. And so it stuck. And so Kim and I call each other Lula Lee now, and no one else can work out what the hell that's about. So I'm letting you know in on the secrets. But I've known Kim since we both trained at the Ivana Chubbuck studio. When was that, Kim?
It's about 14 years ago. I went over there from Australia to train as a teacher. And of course, you were there in her masterclass as an actor.
Yeah, and we instantly connected, and we had many great trips home from the class talking about spiritual things and the craft, and we just had an instant connection. And then you very kindly invited me to come and teach at 16th Street, and I taught the very first class when 16th Street was based in South Melbourne in this quite little studio. We had 24 actors, and some of them were in the kitchen, and I was trying to run an exercise through past the whole class, and some of them I could see in the kitchen there because that's all we had room for, but it worked really well. So the connection with you, Kim.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that?
Stacey, can you go on mute? Thanks, love. Yeah, and Anthony, it's interesting going back to, and I remember watching Anthony in that classroom, and there was something that struck me so immediately. Every time he had a scene that was up, I'd hover around Ivana, because I really, had more questions to ask her at this point, but really so I could get down the front of the classroom. Because every time I remember watching you work, Anthony, you were just always audacious and bold in your choices, and it just felt like there was a fearlessness. And so then getting to know you, and I have to say, having a friend, and I've got just a small little group of them. I don't think we need more than just a small handful. Those friends that you have where you can be incredibly open, very honest. You can speak about things to the depth of your being with the absolute surety that they won't collude with you about your bad bits and say, oh, yes, that's justified. You should feel that way. There's a ground where you have the opportunity of really, I think, discovering something about yourself. And you've given that to me, but Anthony, you've also offered that to many, many people in our industry, the actors that you offer great mentorship with. So I want to launch straight off into, I think, a very significant thing I heard you once say. You said, something an actor can do every day to improve their life and career is to remember who they really are. And that's quite the statement. I was just wondering, do you mind, because it does involve something quite significant. Do you mind speaking about that, Anthony, and what that means to you?
Sure, my pleasure. I personally believe that we have a version of ourselves that is present, even as all of you are listening. And thank you all for joining us today. It's so delicious to do this. Even as all of you are listening here today, we have a version of us that is truly peaceful, fearless, compassionate, abundant, mindful, loving, and unafraid. And that version never, ever, ever goes away. It doesn't matter if on the surface of your personality, your psyche, you're freaking out about an audition, you're feeling unworthy, you're stressed about.
Anthony, can you just go back to that butte moment of
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if you're stressed out?
yes, I just got muted for a moment there. So what I was saying is that I believe there's a version that operates underneath all the temporary emotional experiences in our psyche that operates below the level of thought. And meditation, as you well know, Kim, because I know you're very much like I am into meditation, is a great way to access this very calm, abiding place that just watches all the phenomena, both external phenomena and internal phenomena, and is able to keep its center no matter what, and isn't wedded to or preoccupied with or threatened by anything going on in the external world or anything indeed going on with our internal emotional or thought life. So when I work with actors, one of the first things I do when I'm mentoring them for private sessions or I'm doing career mentoring or working on a scene is I work with them to find out, where is your consciousness at? That's the very first thing, because you can work with an actor's show reel. You can take action. You can get new headshots, all those things. You can go to a dialect class. You can go to an acting class, and all those things are really important. But if an actor's state of being is one where they're very identified with their fears, their upsets, their feeling of not being good enough, and that's where their energy is going. And remember, where energy goes, where attention flows, energy goes, you know, and manifestation goes as well, then it's like by doing the acting class, you're taking one really constructive step forward, but with your consciousness, which is so gripped in fear and gripped in unworthiness, you're taking two steps back. And so, one of the first things I work with actors, you know, it's constant work on myself as well, is to learn to center in the knowledge that there is a version of us that is always happy. Now, that's a very provocative word. I don't mean happy, happy, you know, like in a sort of manic depressive, I'm happy. I mean in a really deeply centered, accepting, loving, expansive, vast place. So when actors are going into an audition and I'm coaching them for that audition, I say, and you know, these are in-person auditions or self-tapes, I say the first thing you want to do is do something that takes you in to that awareness of your vastness, of your intrinsic self-worth, your intrinsic calmness and peace. Go there first and then do the audition and then do the run through of the lines and then show up and speak to your teacher or your scene partner. Get aligned first to who you really are and then do. When you go on a date, get aligned first, then go to the restaurant and meet the person, the blind date. And that works for everything in life. When you want to have a really difficult conversation with someone that you love very much, but you've got some difficult, challenging things to say, get into alignment first with who you really are, which is all loving and all compassionate. And you still might speak some hard truths from that place, but you'll do it with a more of a tenderness than if you just are so identified with your anger and your righteousness, and God knows I've been there so many times, haven't we all? But that's what I mean about remembering who you are, because who we are is vast and expansive and unafraid of coronavirus. That doesn't mean we don't pay attention to all the medical data and that we do everything we can to protect ourselves and others, and we do whatever we can to protect ourselves. I'm not being naive about that. I'm just saying that there is a version of us that lies underneath coronavirus, that lies underneath what's going on politically, that lies underneath what's happening in the industry, that lies underneath resentment. And that version of ourselves, and I'm just going to hold this up for a moment, and I'm not a Buddhist, but I think Buddhism is a wonderful thing. But this is a version, I believe there's a version that's sitting inside of us 24/7, 365 days a year, and it just doesn't freak out about anything. Certainly not an audition or a callback. So what does that mean? The surface part of you can be like, oh my God, I'm going in to see a casting director and I've got to impress them. And you could have all that going on, and that's fine, that's human. But meanwhile, underneath that is this profound part of you that's just sitting in lotus position, watching the whole audition process, and has got your back 24/7 and loves you, whether you get the audition or don't. And that's a great, calming, soothing, beautiful place to remember in ourselves.
Can I ask you, and honestly, it sounds so wonderful. And I think, I'm at a certain point in my life now, Anthony, that when you say those things, it's something feels experiential when you say them. But I imagine until either there's a path that people have found or a practice that people have, it can sometimes sound like they're words, but because there's so much busyness and so much in the mind that can be pulling people, really a lot of a disturbance in the mind, a lot of negativity. Can you talk a little bit about just how to begin? What's useful? What did you do? Did you grow up with this as a part of your life? Did you find your way somewhere? What was precipitated this for you, this journey for you in your life that's given you a bit of an understanding of this?
I think this is a funny word to use, but I think I was blessed to, be born into this life as a gay Asian man growing up in the West, where I had to experience, until 4 years ago now, until 4 years ago, I couldn't marry. If I wanted to marry my partner, Matt, wasn't on the table. I wasn't allowed to do that. I was a second class citizen in my own country, around like being able to marry the person I love. So there've been a lot of wounds there, and I think when you get wounded, and when you get wounded systemically, like when you grow up in an environment where Ching Chong Chinaman and all that is in the air, and you pufta and all that's going around, it wounds you, and so you can either continue to wound yourself and take that on board and take all those, or you can look up and go, what am I going to do about that? That exists, but am I going to exist at the level of the low level consciousness of fear and prejudice and homophobia and racism, sexism and transgender phobia? And am I going to exist at that level, or am I going to try to rise up to be who I came here to be and to be my potential, which is that true version I was talking about a moment ago? And so I think pain and wounds and prejudice can be a great fuel, as Ivana Chubbuck often says, to to find your best self. Has it been easy all along? Do I always have it together? No, not at all. Do I have my days where someone in the traffic pisses me off and I lose my shit? Yes, absolutely. Like anyone else. Am I still working on it? Yes, will be to my dying day and beyond. But I think for someone who's starting, you start wherever it feels good to start. That might be a yoga class to slow your nervous system down enough to hear that quiet, still voice. That might be meditation. That might be writing affirmations. That might be reading Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. That might be going to the gym and having a great workout to get your aggression and your upset out. That might be, there's no one formula, and every person has to find their way. Another person, it might be to sign up to an acting class that they've been scared to sign up to and just go for it and do it and just immerse themselves in the work, and that might be their healing. I don't know. I know for me, I was I found a lot of great books, like the work of Louise Hay, like the work of Marianne Williamson, the work of Anthony Robbins, the work of Wayne Dyer, the work of Earl Nightingale, the work of Byron Katie, Joseph Goldstein, Gangaji, a lot of people whose work really appealed to me. And all of that work feeds into what I do as an actor and as a teacher because it helps center myself. And it kind of, something we were talking about earlier, Kim, was about how, as actors, we're very encouraged to be emotional. We need to be fully in touch with our whole emotional life in order to play all these variety of characters. But the dark side of that is that you can be so identified with your emotional life and so sensitive, hypersensitive to everything, which, we need a very high level of sensitivity as an artist to do what we do. But then you can be an emotional hostage, so someone looks at you the wrong way and you have a bad day or a bad couple of days because someone at the supermarket was a bit abrupt, and then you get so hurt by that and offended, and then your whole day's gone ruminating about that. And I so have done that. I so have done that. So I guess as an artist, it's this dance between how do we stay in touch with feeling everything and not denying any feelings, but also not being so ensconced in them that we're an emotional mess in our personal lives. And so all these practices of meditation and affirmations and spiritual work and healing work and therapy, and they help you navigate that in a more middle pathway. So you can still be in touch with your feelings and cry at the drop of a hat, but you can also choose, because I think all success in life is about where we put our focus.
Can you talk about that? Because I know you say that we can choose how we feel. And I think a lot of people, when they're in that, the maelstrom of feeling, it's like there is no choice. They are truly captivated. So I think you've got to kind of prepare. I know Rabina Courtin talks about it. Once you're in the grip of it, it's like you're literally flying down the freeway and the wheels have come off. So it has to be sort of before you're in the grip of something. So I want to go back, Anthony. So growing up, as an Asian Australian, and of course, you didn't have any role models in acting in Australia, Asian Australian actors who kind of, forged a career in this industry that were role models. And you spoke about being gay. And I would imagine, Anthony, has rage something that you've had to deal with, and the balance of how do you actually not suppress emotion, ignore emotion, avoid emotion or anything, how to kind of be with it all and find some kind of kind attention towards it all, because I do think it is through all of that something reveals itself, which is the bit that I think lies beyond. How did you deal with that? Because a lot of people struggle terribly with the emotion of anger and rage. To me, it was effortless for me. I was angry from the time I was a nipper. I had no problem with anger. So can you tell me, what about for you, how to deal with that emotion? What did you do very specifically?
Well, I think I'm a work in progress with that because I had a day when I went up to the shops today and two people were really abrupt to me, and they sort of like invaded. We're meant a social distance. We're still in lockdown here if you're tuning in from New South Wales and many other states of Australia too. And this woman just came straight into my space, and like I was in the line, and I just felt my rage come up, and I was like, wow. Here it comes. And then another woman, I was waiting to get like a burger or something, and she was like, "Are you in line?" with this tone, and I was like, and I felt myself get triggered, and she was like, and I said, "Yeah, I am." She's, "Why are you standing over there?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to social distance." And she's like, "Oh," and then she went off in a huff, and I got really triggered. And I thought, isn't it interesting? I've, decades of work and the triggers still come up. But I think what happens is that when you do this kind of work, and it doesn't kick in overnight, obviously, it's an ongoing work, but it means that whereas in the past you might have just screamed at the person or done something really inappropriate or gone home and like, carried the rage and then ate a lot to suppress it or whatever. When you do this work ongoingly, what happens is you get a little more awake about your choices. It doesn't mean you always have access to it, but maybe like in the past, you always yelled back at the person. Certainly been that guy sometimes, but now you take a pause and you say, I'm not going to yell at the person because the person's just as scared as I, because we're all freaking out about COVID and we're all worried about getting it and it's all in the air. So this is a person just like me who, and you pause. And so I didn't yell, and I didn't give her too much of a tone. I just said, "Could you step back, please?" But maybe there was a little bit of a tone, but better than maybe 5 years ago when there was a lot of the tone. Like I think the work that you do gives you more choices over time. You develop habits of mindfulness, and they take time, and they still take time. But you I know I'm better off than 20 years ago. Wow, when I look at how I handled things 20 years ago, and I look at things how I handle them now, I mean, I'm into the almost 9 years into my current relationship. Lula, I didn't think I could do relationships in the past. So thank God for a lot of therapy, a lot of self-reflection, and I'm very happily in my relationship with Matt. But that's been a work in progress because I don't think for most of my life I was a career guy and I didn't do much relationships. So all the work kicks in and starts to. It's like all the work you do as an actor too. All the work you do on your voice, all the work you do on your American dialect or your British dialect or your Chinese dialect, all the emotional work you do, there comes a point where it becomes subconscious and it's actually a body thing, not a head thing anymore. So that's the first part of what you talked about. And the second was about Asian Australian role models. And yeah, I look to the US for a lot of my role models growing up as an actor in my career because there weren't many people doing it as a full-time career. There were some, but they were doing it more as a part-time thing because there wasn't a lot of scope for someone to have a career as an Asian Australian actor when I first started out. So I looked across to the US to people like BD Wong who won the Tony Award for M Butterfly on Broadway. I looked to, obviously, I looked to Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee was a big role model for me because he was one of the first Asian American lead actors, who was not cast, even though he did a lot of kung fu and stuff in some of his films, he wasn't just the kung fu guy. He was this really sexy, romantic lead guy. And that I hadn't seen that before because usually the Asian guys that were in film and television were dorks. They were the guys with the thick glasses who said, they're the scientists and they did all, they had these really thick accents and they were often stereotyped and figures of fun to laugh at. They were asexual. They had nothing down there. Whereas Brandon Lee came along and was like, hey, I'm the sexy guy. I'm, really masculine. He was a different kind of Asian man that we'd never seen before in Hollywood film and television. So I looked over there for I looked at Lucy Liu and Sandra Oh and of course Jackie Chan and people like that. But what's really exciting now is that there's just a plethora of wonderful Asian Australian performers in Australia. And, like Ronnie Cheng, I just watched his show on Netflix, his series, laughed my ass off, so brilliant. And also his Netflix series, and he was also in Crazy Rich Asians. And Crazy Rich Asians was, I can't remember the exact statistic, but one of the most successful rom-coms, at the box office of all time. And seeing that was so healing to go sit in the cinema and to watch a major Hollywood film that had major global success be peopled in the main roles with just gorgeous, talented Asian American and Asian Australian and Asian British in the case of Henry Golding actors. So that was a long-winded way. That was a lot of conversation.
No. It was great actually. You covered a lot of ground. We've got some actors at the moment who are about to graduate, and it's been a challenging time because obviously they're doing it online. But it's this thing of, my mother used to say, you can't put an old head on young shoulders. And it's like, I wish to God we could, but we've all got to go through something. But Anthony, there is something, like I heard a story of an 18-year-old young actor who was really in despair, who thought that literally they had almost left their run too late because of this last 18 months of COVID at 18.
Wow.
Was in this despair about their lives,
Wow.
about their life, that they had left their run too late. And that's 18. So we look, certainly me at 64 and you at whatever age you are, and even some of the actors here in their 20s would go, oh, that's kind of crazy. But it's as crazy for me when they feel this rush and this feeling that they've just got to get there tomorrow rather than somehow. How do you think, Anthony, you can, cultivate the idea that where we are right now is good enough? This is where we are right now, and to find some sense of presence in this moment and still have aspirations and dreams, but not be pulled along by them to such a degree that we cannot find satisfaction in the present moment, which of course is all about acting, isn't it? It's about how can I be in the moment.
Yeah.
But what do you think about that, Anthony? That sense of rushing and wanting to be there yesterday?
It's there's an epidemic of that, and Matt was watching a program on the television today called Mirror Mirror, which is all
Mm.
about our obsession with beauty. It's a Todd Sampson body hack, the guy from Body Hack. He's got a show. It's all about that, and I wasn't watching it. I was doing other stuff, but I did hear one little snippet of it where they were saying we see more images in one day from social media than our parents and our grandparents used to see throughout their entire childhood. That's disturbing. The and that 99% of all advertising images are retouched. So you're not actually seeing the person really with their acne scars and their double chin and their bit of, dad bod. You're seeing a reworked version of them. And of course, and what it does inevitably is it creates jealousy and insecurity because we compare ourselves against an ideal that actually doesn't exist. So it is. So that's not answering your question. That's just to say what we're up against,
Mm.
and that's why unplugging from time to time from that treadmill of imagery might be useful. I think anything that can slow. I think what's happened. I remember doing Les Chanteri's wonderful. He did a class for MEAA, and he was talking about the attention span. Now, I could have gotten this exact statistic wrong, but it was something like our attention span has, as human beings, has reduced
It
from
has.
like 12 seconds to 8 seconds. I could be wrong. Pardon me, Les, if I've gotten that wrong. But the principle was that we have a shorter attention span because of this constant flashing of imagery. So anything that slows our nervous system down so that we're not doing this all the time, and because when you're doing that, you're not in this part of yourself, and you don't make necessarily great decisions from that place. You are often running on fear or anxiety or insecurity. Anything that can help us get underneath that, and it might just be a pause in the middle of the day when you're on the way to the audition and you can find yourself doing, oh my God, what's my objective? Is my substitution? What if I can't cry? And you're doing all that. And blah, blah, blah. What if Amanda Mitchell doesn't like me? Or, I've got to impress, blah, blah, blah. All this, whatever's going on in your head. And why wouldn't Amanda Mitchell like you? She's the most delightful human being. But our insecurity of our brain can just so get on a crazy sort of speed driven course. So anything that can slow you down and return you to that version of yourself that's always sane. That's why when you say, Lula, about, someone might not be at the stage where they can do that yet. And it has to be worked on because we've often picked up bad habits, bad habits of stress and bad habits of insecurity. And we've practiced those a lot of time. And anything you practice can become stronger. So to disentangle from that might take a little bit of time, but starting with slowing down and pausing. So it might be there's something in a process called segment intending, which was created by Esther and Jerry Hicks, and it's in a book called Ask and It Is Given: The Teachings of Abraham by Esther and Jerry Hicks, and it's where you consciously intend what you're going to do for a period of time. So you might say, okay, I'm going to sit down and talk with Lula and do this Q&A in front of all these wonderful people. So just before I started, I take a moment, and I did it before I got online with you. I just said, what's my intention? And I segment intended for the segment of time that is this Q&A. I set an intention, and this was my intention. I said, I just want to be of service, bring some light into people's life in any way I can. Not that I'm any kind of guru or anything like that, not saying that, but just that's all I want to do. I just want to, if we're going through hard times, we're in our little Zoom boxes, and if I can just maybe say one thing that helps someone feel a little bit more positive about their day or their life or themselves, then I've done my job. And that's an intention. And then after I finish the Q&A, I'm going to go sit down and watch my favorite new series, Transparent, with Matt. We're going to cuddle up on the couch together under the blankie and have some food. And I could then literally say, what's my intention here? My intention is to feel close to my partner. and I set an intention for that next segment of time. And then before I go to bed, I could say, what's my intention here? And I go, my intention is to have a really good night's sleep and wake up rejuvenated the next morning. Now, I know that could sound laborious. I'm not suggesting you segment intend every 3 minute time segments, but it's sometimes a good thing to do, because we just run off sometimes at the mouth, or we run off in the mind, and we don't realize we just get so down that rabbit hole. And you can actually stop it. You can stop where you're going. You can stop where the river's going momentarily, and you can say, hey, I'm about to yell at my mum again. I'm about to not be very kind to my work colleague. I'm about to go into the fear of COVID again. And I could stop it. I could say, what's my intention today? My intention today is to not obsess about COVID today. My intention, and to have and see the sunshine and go for a walk and play, take my volleyball out and play in the park, and that's my intention. Or my intention is, I usually put myself down at auditions, and my intention in this particular segment of time is, I'm going to have so much fun, and I don't care how it comes out. And I'm going to do, part of my French, everyone who's listening, but I'm going to do the fuck it take today when I do this self tape, which means I'm going to not give a fuck, and I'm going to have fun. And that's my intention. So it's just stopping long enough to make a fresh choice. And it's work. It's not like it's always easy, but we can stop. We don't have to be a hostage to every thought and feeling. I sometimes say in class, I don't know who taught me this. Was it my therapist or someone who said that you can say this to yourself, it's only my mind. And I don't have to believe every thought that goes through my mind. I can choose which thoughts I want to invest in. Just like you don't go to a smorgasbord and eat everything in the smorgasbord, even if it makes you sick, or sometimes you do. but you choose. You go, I know that sashimi that I had, last time I had that, it made me sick. I know that thought, last time I thought that, it sent me down a pathway I didn't want to go. So I can choose, I can segment intent. I'm not going to eat it. I can see it. I don't have to deny it's there, but I'm not going to eat it. I'm going to have something else to eat. And
You know,
mentally, we can have a mental diet where we choose more consciously our mental diet.
I like what you're saying. Venerable Rabina Court, the Buddhist nun, and she says,
Amazing.
sometimes those crazy roommates, which are those thoughts, come out. And she said, all the good roommates are under the bed. They need to come out and somehow engage with them and not just let them run amok. And I think we do have some real kind of power in that we can utilize. But Anthony, it seems to me, since I've known you, something that struck me, and I think anybody who knows you, you do actually live and with such a sense of an abundance and a desire to really taste life and to live it, and to know yourself very fully as an actor, an acting teacher, a singer. You love travel. You're somebody who's got bucket lists, and you've moved towards those kind of choices in your life of an abundance in your mind, that's possible, versus cultivating poverty in your mind. So you've made those choices. Were they easy for you to make, or did that come quite easily to make those kind of choices, to live that way and to fill your own life with things that then have a lovely kind of ripple effect into your work?
It's a great question. I think I, by nature, am more of an, definitely not maybe, I'm an optimist. But it's work, particularly when you see a lot of things happening on the planet that are so painful. I mean, what's going on in Afghanistan? I mean, how can you not let that rips you asunder to see what some people are what it's gonna be like for them now? And it's just like, so these things are occurring all the time. And so I think those of us who are fortunate enough to live in the first world, where we have clean drinking water on tap, do you know 70% of the world doesn't? Uh, or like Matt and I have been talking to our friend Deepak in Varanasi, and we were going, when it was bad over there, and we're going, how's it going with COVID? And we said, do you have any? We talked about JobKeeper and JobSeeker and these different financial options that were provided by our government. And I said, what do you guys have over there? Do you have any government support? And he said, we get 1 5 kilogram bag of rice for a month for a whole family, and 1 9 kilogram bag of wheat or some other, maybe it was some other protein, and that was it. And I was like, it just brought the rest of the world back into my bedroom. I was like, oh, okay. And I said, can you get a, he said, we're too scared to go out and get a COVID test because there's so much infection. It's just Delta's spread through our whole community. And we have to pay for a COVID test. I was like, you have to pay for a COVID test. I've just had like 30 and I just drove through and it took 3 minutes. Like, it just brings that kind of, we just can so often, and I don't mean this to discount what we go through in the first world, but we can so often be infuriated by first world problems. They ran out of soy. Can you believe it? They don't have my oat milk and it's not organic. Oh my God, I didn't get a window seat. You know what I mean? And it's just like, we're just so blessed every freaking minute of the day. I know it's hard. It's really tough, this lockdown. It's tough. But I turn on my television and I have 22,000 programs to learn from, occupy me, you know, to learn. There's masterclass.com. There's the things you're offering on 16th Street. There's all the free MEAA courses. I just did one today with beautiful Leith McPherson running a 25-minute voice class. Free. So much. We're so blessed beyond the wazoo. And yet, when I say that, I'm not trying to be Pollyanna and discount all the suffering. There's so much suffering as well. But what are we going to choose? Like, how can you help the world? Can you help the world better by indulging in the suffering or endlessly? Like, certainly feel it. Let yourself feel it and cry about it and get mad about it. Do all those things, but to stay in it. When other people that I know in India, Matt and I love India, and we just saw the squalid conditions they were living in. I remember going into this slum in Mumbai, one of the largest slums in the world, and the kids were kicking around a soccer ball and they were so happy. And it was decrepit in there. The they couldn't social distance because a family of 7 were in a room that was so cramped that they can't sleep on the floor. They can't stretch out. They have to sleep up against the wall because there's no room to spread out in a family of 7 or 5 stuck in this small little shoebox of a room. And I thought, we just forget that sometimes. Like, you know, when you go to bed, you want to go, I'm so glad I'm not out in the cold tonight, like so many people are. I've got a bed and a comfy doona and I've got soy milk in the fridge.
And I feel it's organic.
Do you know what I mean? It's just, I just think it's really good to watch documentaries just to remember I've got this blessing and I've got this talent and I've got this intelligence and I've got something to say. And maybe I'm not working. You know, I didn't work for 3 years. I'd done the Matrix and I went over to LA and based myself over there. And for those 3 years, I went for so many auditions. I did so much work and I could not get across the line. And I was going to come home and give up my green card because I thought I'm doing everything I know I can't get across the damn line. And what I didn't realize is that whenever you're working that hard and consistently and diligently, you're growing roots under the soil, which you can't see. And then one day a flower pops up above the surface and you go, there's my job. And that's how it worked for me too. But I thought nothing was progressing, but it was progressing. But it's like, it just, yeah, perspective is really important, I think, just to, you know, after this, I'm going to go get a glass of water and I don't have to think about getting giardia. I just turn the tap on and clean drinking water. And, you know, I know people might say, well, there's still stuff in it, but relatively to the rest of the world, to not the rest of the world, but a lot of the world, I can drink that water and I don't have to think about it. What a freaking blessing. I'm not even kidding. You know, I've got a bookshelf full of acting books and tomes of knowledge. Some people to even afford one book, like we gave Deepak some money. I think we gave him like $350 Australian. It was enough to send him through a computer course for 6 months and his brother to do a culinary course for 6 months. It's so much money for those guys. Not a lot for us. You know, I do a couple sessions, that's $350, you know, but it's like, for him, it's massive. And we're so abundant. We're so abundant.
Thank you, darling, for sharing that. I really, really appreciate it. And I think it'd be a nice point now to just see if anybody has any questions. My internet connection might be going a bit funny. So if, darling, it does happen and something and I drop out, please let's ask the questions. You or Brenna, who's in the background there, ask questions so we don't lose anything. Okay, so
And can I just quickly answer? Someone just asked me what the name of the book I mentioned. I just want to quickly say it. It was called
please.
Ask and It Is Given. Do I have it here to show you? Yes, I do. It's this book, Ask and It Is Given, Learning to Manifest Your Desires. This book is so powerful that four of the leading spiritual teachers on the planet went to this author and said, what can we do to promote it? That's Louise Hay, Wayne Dyer, Jack Canfield, and Neil Donald Walsh all went to this author and said, this is amazing. This is going to help the planet so much. What can we do to promote it? So I talk about this a lot in my classes. But go on, sorry.
Thank you. No. Great. Thank you. All right. Now, what I thought we could do, Anthony, tell me your thoughts. Either I can ask the questions as people do, or we bring everybody back on and we go for hands and then people can pin the speaker. Does that seem like a good idea?
I'd love to see people's faces.
Great. Let's do it. So everybody, why don't you come back on? Bravo, bravo.
Hi, everyone.
Excellent. Oh, come back, everybody. We need each other. Come back on. How marvelous.
Yeah,
so I think the first question, maybe keep on mute until you ask the question, just so we don't have too much background noise. So why don't we start with you, Lachlan, first, then Michael. Where you go, Lachlan?
Hi. Oh, I've lost you, Anthony. There you are. Hi, thank you so much for coming and speaking to us tonight. It's been wonderful. My question for you is something you probably get asked quite a lot, but I would love to hear it. Why do you continue to follow this craft and this art form, and what makes you keep going with it as an artist?
Such a great question, Lachlan. First of all, what profession can you do where you get to just explore so many different aspects of yourself and so many different parts of your human nature, both the good, bad, and ugly? And there, from that, the jumping off point from that is then when you see those things in yourself, those shadow things, those gnarly things, it gives you the opportunity to understand more compassionately about your fellow human being that, oh, okay, I saw my selfish side. Maybe when I see it in someone else, I'm a little more compassionate. I mean, I want to recommend to all of you Transparent on Amazon Prime, because that show just shows people so honestly the good, bad, and ugly about human beings. And it's, it doesn't sugarcoat it. It really just shows raw humanity at play. And when I watch it, I feel better about myself, because when they do effed up things, I go, oh, okay, I've done a version of that. Okay, we all can do that. So that's one reason. And I think storytelling is a great way. I mean, in an era where there's so much fake news and what's the truth and who's telling the truth, it is so important, the power of storytelling, to cut through to the humanity in all of us, because we're not going to survive as a species unless we truly come together. And that's not some kind of new age cliche I'm saying. It's true. If we don't band together, we're not going to get this climate stuff under control. We think COVID is one of the, I don't mean to be negative here, but we think we're dealing with COVID, but we've got other things we're going to be dealing with after this and while we're doing this. So the only way is if we joined, the era of self-centeredness is going to get us killed as a human race. We've done that. We've been in the longest post-adolescence known, in the last few centuries. We can't be adolescent anymore. We have to be grown-ups, because grown-ups think about other people. They think about the community. They think about the group. They don't just go, me, my feelings. And so we have to get there. And storytelling is a way to remind us that those Afghanis are not different. Those trans brothers and sisters and non-binary people who are struggling and getting beaten up and murdered just for being trans, they're not different. So that's where storytelling can do that. And that's why, Family Law, I'm so proud of it. I know for a lot of people that show just showed you we're Chinese Australian, but we're not different. That's why when Italian viewers said, oh my God, that's just like my family, that's just like my mom, it meant so much, because we'd gotten through, we were sharing Chinese Australian culture, but we went beyond that and we just shared common humanity. So that's some of the reasons, Lachlan. Great question why I do it. I just love to learn about the human condition and the human condition also that exists within myself.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lachlan. Now we'll, Michael, away you go.
Good evening, Anthony. Thank you very much for this talk. Honestly, it's been great.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
A question that I have is, obviously in your earlier years in late 90s, 2000s, when you were just on the cusp of, really becoming a great working actor, what was, and probably could be till this day, but what's a quality that you continue to nurture within yourself that kind of remind yourself that, you know what, like, despite all the superficial narcissistic BS that I'm going through, I'm still directed onto what it is that I want? What's that nurture that you, what's that quality that you continue to nurture?
Just gets back to what I was, great question, Michael, gets back to what I was saying before, is that trying to listen to my true voice, not my neurotic voice, trying to make decisions from the place of that true version, which is generous and not self-centered, and that wants to do things to help others, and that believes in possibility, that expansive part of me. And then when I'm sitting in that place, I see the best in other people. See, if I'm in my neurosis and I try to teach from that place, and I'm not necessarily seeing the potential because I'm so caught up in my own agenda about, but if I just see everyone who's in my class as a fellow human being who's got a lot to teach me, and I come from having their back, then I teach from a place where I can still be really challenging and firm and honest and get to the point and say, you need to work on this. But it's the energy with which that's delivered. The actor feels that. You all feel when someone's got your back, even if they're tough on you, So the quality, in answer to your question, the quality is the quality of alignment to that best portion of myself, that part of myself that is not the wounded part. What does that mean? That means I honor the wounded part. I honor the wounds. I don't pretend they're not there, but I try not to let that drive the car. I read this book called A Little Bit of Calm. It's a book about panic attacks and anxiety and all that. And it was saying that we've all got a Bob in us, and the Bob is that voice in us that's like, you're not going to succeed, and you're a ratbag, and you've got, you're too ugly, and you're too fat, and you're too ethnic to succeed. And we've all got a Bob, and Bob's like the drunk that comes in at the pub and goes, yeah, fucking that. And when Bob comes in, like if you're having with your friends, you don't necessarily like take Bob seriously because Bob's pissed out of their brain and just saying a whole bunch of shit, right? So we've all got that voice in our head that can just torture us, and you don't have to chuck Bob out because Bob's actually harmless, but you just go, it's Bob. Or if you want to call it Bertha, it's Bertha, you're just like, oh, it's Bob having a bit of a. And so the quality I try to nurture is not listening to Bob in my career choices and not listening to Bob when I work. Like, he's gonna be there, but I don't run the show. Does that make sense?
Crystal, thank you very much.
Yeah. And when you said narcissistic bullshit and all that, yeah, but that's this. Can you hear me? My internet connection's just gone on.
Oh, it's okay.
That's the superficial. That's the superficial level in people, when people are like superficial and nasty, and that's the surface behavior. And our job is to have X-ray vision and to look through that into their heart. And it's really tough sometimes, when, like today at the supermarket, I for a moment forgot that was a fellow sister, and I went into my, how dare you talk to me? And then I thought about it later, and I went, she's just as freaked out as I am. She's probably as germophobic as I am about getting COVID. Like we're all a little bit like this during this era, and so she's not that different. She just spoke a bit sharply, and I've certainly spoken sharply during this COVID time when I've been anxious, and so it's just like, okay, it's just like me. All right. Calm down, Anthony.
Thank you, honey.
Thank you, Michael.
It's a question now about just which one? Does anybody have a question here? I've got a few that have been sent to me. Do I see a hand going up? No, I'll ask Mike. Oh, yes, I do. So Jackson, let's go with you, love. And then Saskia, let's go with you.
Hey, Anthony, how are you going?
Hey, Jackson. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Cool name.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you, like, what's your best tip on dealing with rejection? Like, I've been auditioning for a long time, like a lot of times, and dealing with rejection, how do you overcome it? Like being someone like me and all that.
When you say like you mean, what do you mean like you?
Asian. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Well, first thing I want to say to you is this is a fabulous time for people like you and I, but it's a fabulous time for everyone. This is the time where diversity is being, you can see it, everyone, can't you? Like the number of shows, because the streaming services have changed our industry. Now you can put all kinds of content on there that the commercial channels wouldn't do it. So now Netflix, Stan, Amazon Prime, Binge, Foxtel, they can do shows that are edgy and out there and be diverse. I mean, it's a really good time. So if you're carrying any kind of belief system that, oh, it's so hard because I'm Asian, you want to like maybe look at that narrative. And what I used to do, when I was growing up as a gay young man, what I did is I wallpapered my entire bedroom at my mum and dad's house, like from the top of the ceiling right down to the floor. And I got A4 photocopies of role models. So I had Lucy Liu up on that wall, and I had Jackie Chan, and I had BD Wong, and I had my LGBT role models too. I had Ian Roberts, the footballer, and I had Ian McKellen, and so I would wake up every day going looking at the possibility, not the obstacle. See, that's what I mean about focus. Like, would you rather focus on the obstacle, or would you rather focus on the triumph over the obstacle? And we're built to triumph over obstacles. Human beings are like obstacle destroyers. Like that's if you really, and what you want to do is tell a narrative about how resilient you are, Jackson. So every time if they say no, you want to put a positive spin on it. Like, okay, I didn't get that role, but I got to see that casting director who might think of me for the next, I remember auditioning for True Blood, and they eventually, for the pilot, and I met Alan Ball and I got a call back, and this was in LA. And then eventually they cast a guy who was like 6'5" and a goth. So I wasn't the right type they were looking for. And then they brought me in for that same casting director, Libby Goldstein, brought me in for a show called Persons Unknown. And it came down to me and one other guy to play one of the leads in Mexico City. And I didn't get that either. I missed out. And then she brought me in a third time for an HBO show called 1%, directed by one of the directors of The Sopranos. And I got that one. So don't think, oh, that door's closed. It means if they bring you in again, you're doing something right. You just might not be the right match for that particular role. The other thing is, Jackson, is that Mark Ruffalo went for 1,000. Have you seen that article, everyone? There's an article, if you Google it, Mark Ruffalo went for like 1,000 auditions before he broke through. 1,000. Wow. Felicity Huffman did not work for 2 years before she got her big break on Desperate Housewives. Annie Murphy, who plays Alexis on Schitt's Creek, she had was it $400, $200 in her bank account, and she wasn't the first choice for that role. But the woman who got cast had to pull out due to another commitment, and then Annie Murphy took over, and then the rest is history. Like, she's just a cornerstone of that comedy show. So, like, people just read those kinds of stories to help you with rejection too, Jackson, just to know how many of us have gone through it again and again. But if you persist and keep on working on your work and keep deepening your work and detailing your work, you'll break through, but it might take a little bit of time. But you got to feel the ouch of the rejection and not deny it. But then give yourself an hour. Go, I'm going to bitch about this and call up my friend and go, it's not fair, and I'm going to do that for an hour. And then I'm going to get working again. I'm going to go back to work, and when I went to LA, I couldn't get arrested at first. You know, I got lots of auditions, but I couldn't get a job for 3 years. But I had to deepen because the kind of quality of work I was doing in Australia, booking, you know, I was kind of booking one role out of 4 auditions in Australia. I wasn't doing that in the States. There's so many good actors. So I had to get better. I had to keep staying in class, keep challenging myself, and eventually you get across the line. But this is a great time for Asian actors and actors from every background.
But Anthony, you've said something as well, which I think is great. That period of 3 years, which just felt like you were in the wilderness, not getting work, it took you to a place inside of yourself as well, on a kind of a, you know, an emotional and a spiritual place where you started to realize something internal rather than look to externally for validation. And it freed something up in you, didn't it?
Yes, it did. And what I did when I like had been for 50, like real, I'd been for all these auditions over 3 years in LA. I got callbacks, I got close to them, didn't get any of them. And what I realized I was doing subconsciously was I was kind of had a bit of a pass fail mentality going in my head. Like if I get the job, I succeed. And if I don't, I fail. I didn't even realize that was happening. It was happening kind of at a subconscious level. And then I went to do this course called The Artist's Way, which is based on the book by Julia Cameron. And that course, which was brilliant, was all about process, like all about making it about process and reigniting and rejuvenating the love of the craft. And once I took away that I've got to pass or fail, I've got to get the job, and just made it about, oh, yum, 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 I'm working on a script and this character is so fun. And what's the objective? Oh, how fun to find that. And then that's when I got booked on the show called The Unit, and David Mamet, the playwright, who's the creator of that show, he was the one who chose me. That's when I broke through, when I had the least amount of tension around and kind of attachment to it.
Thanks.
When you let go of the oars, that's when you actually get the job, because you're now, like, when you don't care, like that's when Gabriel Byrne, who hadn't worked for a year, and he just went, fuck it. And he went into 2 auditions that day and he got both of them after a year of not working, because he just went. That's why I think the word fuck it is a really good word for acting. It's like, you do your fuck it take. To go, fuck it. Fuck it if it's not what my acting teacher says. Fuck it that it's not the correct thing to do. And just do one of those takes where you don't care. And sometimes your outtakes are your best work.
Thanks, Anthony. Let's do Suzanne, then Sally, and then Eleni. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. But Suzanne, let's start with you, my love.
Thanks, Anthony. Love your work.
You're so welcome. Great question.
Oh, Suzanne, we can't hear you, love. Oh, Isaac just popped in. There's Suzanne. Where you go, Suzanne? No, you absolutely can't hear it. Not a syllable, Suzanne. We're going to come back to you, honey. We'll go to you, Sally, first.
Hello,
Hi, Sally.
hi, Anthony. Thank you so much for what you're saying. I feel like it really resonates with me, and I feel like we've been maybe reading similar books, so that feels really good. I was going to ask, with all the emotional work that you're doing for yourself, do you see a change in your acting work from before and now, and sort of this progression, this change?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In 1985, I went to do an audition technique workshop with my friend Dean Carey, and Gail Edwards, a very leading theatre director, was invited in as a guest teacher. And I did a monologue from Harold Pinter's Homecoming. And this is what she wrote on my audition feedback sheet. She went, "Nice, clear work, works from the head." And I went, no, because I didn't say that to her. This was privately, my inner monologue, because I was thinking, works from the head? I don't want to work from the head. I want to be a gut level actor. And so that was the best thing for me to hear, because that sent me on this journey to do every kind of like deep emotional work. I did primal scream therapy. I went to bioenergetics. I went to Meisner technique. I went to all this stuff, which is all about the emotional life. And it's because I was a journalist before I became an actor. So very sort of head stuff. And it has changed. Absolutely. I remember once, like, what happened? I was on a shoot and that's right. And I just burst into tears, like, so easily. Whereas bursting into tears was never easy for me. I had to really work at it. You know, I'd do like 2 hours of preparation so I could cry. And then I remember like being on a shoot once and it was effortless. And I was like, oh, wow, that's all the work I've been doing. That's the result of those years of work where it's now reached the fourth stage of learning. You know, there are four stages of learning. And the last stage of learning is when something becomes unconsciously competent, where you don't have to think about it, like an accent that you don't have to think about anymore. And I thought, wow, it's just all kicked in. I don't have to do that 2 hours of preparation anymore. So yeah, it does. Your emotional instrument speeds up. It's like you do the bicep curl enough and then the muscle appears. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Thanks so much. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you, Sally. And if you don't mind, I might, before I go to Eleni and then back to you, Suzanne, can I just go to you, Abdul? You had a question, honey? You were up your
Yes, I do.
Yes, love, go for it.
Sorry, I just got back from work. And
okay, love. Whoa.
hey. So, sorry, give me a second. So, I'm just wondering, because I come from Malaysia, I came to Melbourne to study acting.
Abdul, can I say something? There's a whole lot of noise. Can you stand still?
Sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, there was just a bit of a crunchy munchy sound going on.
Yep.
It was hard to
Sorry. So I just came from Malaysia to study acting at VCA. But I think the biggest problem that I always find was more like, because I come from Malaysia, coming into Australia, doing and feeling being part of the community as an Asian person. But I always feel like the Asian Australian story does not resonate with me, and I always feel lost. But I was also wondering how you felt when you went to America to do, like, you're trying to break into the American scene. And I was wondering how you felt and how you sort of like acclimatize or like to tell your own story as an Asian Australian person.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, certainly I had a lot of Aussie actor friends and I lived with an Australian actress in LA, and that really helped. And I would, when I was in LA, I would, because we weren't allowed to bring Vegemite into the country because it was banned because it has folic acid. So I would smuggle these tubes of Vegemite, like the toothpaste tubes, into my luggage. And I would bring Kath and Kim DVDs over to LA. And when I missed Australia, I would like get a bit of look at me, because I would miss that. And I did feel at times, Abdul, that I was kind of a little bit of like an American imposter, because my process with accent was I would speak the American accent the entire time, even with my Australian flatmate. Because I learnt that on Matrix, because when I worked on Matrix, I did 15 months on that shoot for those two movies and the game, and I didn't want to go in and out, because some actors are really good at that. They can just like talk about their weekend and having a haircut in their Aussie accent, and then just flips straight into a flawless American accent. And I so wish I could do that, but I need to sort of have it in my mouth for a while, so I would just speak American. And I even spoke to my manager and my agent, my American manager and my American agent, in American accent, even though they knew I was Australian. And so, yeah, there were times I would go, like, feel very American because I was doing the American accent all the time. And I grew up with a lot of American influences. And then there would be those times would be like, I really miss Kath and Kim, and I want to watch something Aussie, and I want to talk in my Aussie accent again. So yeah, I understand that feeling of feeling like an outsider. I mean, I felt that as an Asian man within Australia, but then I also felt it with the double layer of being like an Asian Australian man. I'll never forget being in America, and I spoke in my Aussie accent one time, and this white woman from the South said, oh my God, do it again. And I was like, do what again? She's like, oh my God, that accent is so hilarious. She was so offensive. She was laughing like in my face. Good. And I said, don't you have Asian American accents who speak with an American accent? She goes, yeah, but that's different. And I was like, lady, it's not different. I'm just speaking the way of course I would speak like this because I grew up in it, but it was such a huge concept for her. She couldn't get her head around it. But does that answer your question, Abdul? Yes, I have felt that way before. But here's something also, and I felt like that as a gay man too, like, but I remember having a breakthrough around this, and that was I stopped focusing so much on my difference. So I remember doing this personal growth course, and I was like one of the few gay people in the course, and everyone in that course loved me because I would do the choreography that we had to do every morning. We had to do dance routines, and I would lead it, and they adored me, and they didn't give a shit that I was gay, and they loved me, and they wanted me to, and they were like, "We hope you find your partner," and they were so. And then I stopped seeing the world as gay, straight, binary, like gay versus straight. I just went, people. It didn't mean I denied my gayness. It didn't mean I wasn't proud of being gay, but I didn't lead with that. I didn't like it was like going up to someone and going, "Hi, I'm Anthony, I'm gay." Like the first thing you say. I just was like, "You're a human being. We can all do that. We can lead with our difference, and sometimes it creates separation." Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, you're a man, I'm a woman, or I'm a man, you're a woman, like, or you're a Scorpio, I'm Taurus. We're different. Like, why lead with that? Like, yes, be proud of being Scorpio or Taurine or man or woman or gay or straight or Asian, but you don't necessarily have to always lead in life with that. That doesn't have to be like your raison d'etre. You can be like, I love my difference, I love my identity, but I'm going to remember that the person I'm speaking to, the casting director, my scene partner, the other director, human being, I'm going to go for that first, and that connects you, and then you can talk about your difference. And you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you see the world in terms of, oh, I'm an Asian actor, it's so tough for me, there are no good roles for me. That's your narrative, and that's what you create. I don't believe that about the world. I believe this is a wonderful industry full of really decent human beings of every kind of race and sexual orientation and gender, and basically people are good. I go out with that and doesn't make I'm not naive about people being assholes, but I just lead with that. And I've had a great time both here and overseas from leading from that narrative.
And what I just want to say about that, I know Anthony very well, obviously, as a friend, but I know how he is regarded in our industry. He is so, so highly regarded. People want to work with him because of what he brings. And there is a real mindset. And Anthony, you have cultivated that. It's infectious. You bring that into the room when you work as an actor and as an acting teacher. And it does, because something is put out into the world and it comes back. And it feels, doesn't it, Anthony, at times that people can feel they have no control, that it's really happening out there, that we don't have any kind of control over how we see the world. We do have choice in that, and it has to be cultivated, because we can have proclivities to see it one way or the other. But you're a great example of that. A tremendous example, actually, one of the most inspiring I know. Okay, so let's move.
Can I just quickly finish what? And I'm totally happy to go as long as like you want to go, Kim. This is just a blast for me. But just Abdul, one thing I would say, if you're not feeling like, and I totally get it. Please know I totally get where you're coming from with what you're saying about feeling a bit of out of connection with the Australian Asian culture. What I would suggest is to look for the commonalities, and then you might start feeling more that it is your culture here. Do you know, like, it's like when I went to America, I could so focus on, oh, they're so American and they do this and that's their, and then I just went, no, they're just like me. They just have a different accent. They don't tend to upward inflect at the end of their sentences like Aussies do as much, but they're the same. And I made that, and then I just felt really at home there. Home is in your own head. It really is. You can go anywhere on the planet and be at home if you're at home in your own head about it. And what is the essence of that? It's what you focus on. It's what you focus on. If you focus on how much you're alienated, that's what you feel. But if you focus on, wow, that person was so kind at that cafe in Turkey, and God, that Linda lady who works at the kofta place, she's so sweet and she's so lovely, and what a kind soul. Then you will feel at home. Home is what you create, and home in the industry is what you create. It's all about your narrative. Your results in the industry, if you analyze them, they're a direct correlation to how you see our industry. If you see it as hostile, if you see it as unfair, if you have a narrative about it, you will literally walk into that audition room with that narrative leaking out of you, even if you're not saying it. So you can't control the industry necessarily, but you can control what you think about it, the story you tell yourself about it.
Anthony, there's something else I want to say, because it isn't like a magic wand was just kind of hit and you were tapped with it. Can you really just illuminate the hours and weeks and months and years that you have literally put into cultivating this? Because it's not just that you slipped out of the womb with all of this operating. Yes, you might be an optimistic person, but I know the amount of work that you have put into this. And I think it's really important people understand that. But the good news is it is doable. We literally can cultivate a mindset that supports us.
Yeah, absolutely. Every day I get up and I put on my meditation. It's usually like an Abraham Hicks meditation, or it's a Louise Hay meditation, or it's the Headspace app. And I start my day with that intention, because how you get up is how you can often live the rest of the day. Like if you get up in a shitty mood and you didn't sleep well, and then you carry that into the next moment, and then you stub your toe, and then you drop the milk when you're trying to pour into cereal, and it can go downhill. But if you consciously set it up well from the get, it's like warming up as an actor to do a play. You warm up, so you warm your mind up, and you go, what kind of day do I want to have? It doesn't mean I do it every day. There might be a day where I want to just feel shitty that day, or feel sad, or someone passed away, and I just want to nurture that feeling. But overridingly, I work on it every day. It's like going to the gym. It's like mental gym. We've got to take care of our mind. Our mind can be a very dangerous place, or it can be a very safe place, and that's a choice. And so we make that choice every day. So how many hours in a day? I don't know how many hours, but it's been I'm 56. I started when I was 15 reading books like The Greatest Secret by Earl Nightingale, and I just love all that learning. So I just continue to, you know, to your mindset is as important as your voice, as is, if not more important, as important as your accent, as important as your screen acting technique, as important as your ability to choose objectives. It's the leading thing. It's the most important thing. I've got students who didn't go to NIDA or VCA or WAPA or any of those wonderful schools, but they had really good alignment to who they really are, and from that really good confidence, and they're not particularly trained, and they're hugely successful. Because when you're in alignment, you're in your charisma, your natural, unaffected charisma. It's like a kid. When you watch a cute little kid, they're not trying to be cute, or they're just adorable because they're in alignment. It's like a pet. A pet. Don't act with kids and animals, because they'll take the focus, because they're in alignment. People who are in alignment, you can't take your eyes off them, and people who are in alignment feel good a lot of the time, from seeing the world as the beautiful place it is more often than not. And that makes you luminous. That's what luminosity is. That's what stardom is. When it's about depth, but it's also about an orientation towards life, which is, I mean, look at The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, like that man just exudes. Hugh Jackman, they just exude positivity. When I worked with Christian Slater on a film in Utah, I remember him in between takes looking at me on set and doing this, because he was so excited about filming. He was like jazzed up on the filming process. Who doesn't want to work with that?
Thank you, Anthony. Suzanne.
Hi, thank you, Anthony. You can hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. What I wanted to ask you is, how do you kind of conquer your nerves when it comes to auditioning? How do you not let them get the best of you, and so you enjoy it rather than it being like a daunting process?
Yeah. Some wise words. A great teacher of mine, Eric Morris. Some of you may know Eric Morris. He's still teaching online. He said these words: allow, permit, embrace. I think that allow, permit. I think it was embrace is the third word. Meaning, so the nerves come up, and instead of pushing them away, something bad, you breathe and feel your feet on the floor, and you allow them. I remember doing this play reading, and I was the lead in it, and I was sitting in the room, and all these people came in to watch the play, and I just got this huge anxiety out of nowhere. It was just like the kind of anxiety where I wanted to run out of the room, like I was going to freak out and have a bit of a panic attack there. I don't know where it came from. And I thought, what the hell was going on? And partially is I felt like the people who were coming to see the play were going to buy the play. And I had a big responsibility on my shoulders because I was the lead. And then I just remembered, I just slowed my breathing down and I told myself, allow it. You're scared. The little boy in you's scared. Just let it be there. And guess what happened, Suzanne? I did the best work of any play reading I've ever done. I got cast by one of the leading avant-garde Chinese directors in theatre in the world today. He was at the play reading. He cast me as the lead in his play. And the character was freaked out. It was a character who was like going up against a government, and the government could kill him at any moment. So the fear I was feeling was perfect for what I was doing in the situation. So I didn't try to push it away. I tried to let my work be inflected with the colors of it. So it was coming up, and it was really strong, like on a scale of like moderate to strong. It was really strong. It was like, I felt like, I was like, ooh, don't like, freak out here. And I just lent into it. And I made a friend of it. If you've got a little kid crying, you can go, don't cry, I've got a fucking audition. I tried to, or you can go, hey baby, oh, you're scared. Oh yeah, it's scary doing a play reading when all these funding bodies are, oh no, it's scary. Oh, no. And it calms down. Soothe it. You soothe it. Don't push it away. You meet it and you dance with it. And also, another great thing, Suzanne, to do is to set up an Excel spreadsheet on your laptop, and all the times you've had anxiety, everyone, or you've been scared, write down all the times you've been scared and all the times you triumphed over it. And then when you get anxious, you look at that list and you go, well, I've had 23 examples of when I got freaked out and scared, and look what I did. I got that job, I got a call back, I did a fine audition, or I didn't do a fine audition, but that's fine. Like, focus on how resilient you are. We all get scared. Do you know Helen Mirren's talked about her anxiety? Deborah Mailman's talked about her anxiety. Rebecca Gibney, I'm not saying anything out of turn because they've all publicly talked about it. Like Meryl Streep herself, as Meryl Streep has said, when she can't get a character, she sometimes feels schwilkes, which is the Yiddish word for rampant anxiety. That's Meryl Streep. When I worked with Cate Blanchett, she turned to me after a take on Little Fish and she said, I'm so sorry I'm having a bad acting day. And I said to her, can I have one of your bad acting days? This is an Oscar-winning actress who's having a bad acting day. When I worked with Nicole Kidman, she did a take and I saw her run to the director and go, can we do another one? Oh, I didn't like that. Can we do another one? These are like acting royalty who are sometimes insecure about their work. So if they're insecure, these acting legends, then we're allowed to be insecure. And actually you want to be insecure because it shows you've got skin in the game. It shows you care.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Eleni?
Hello, Eleni.
Hello, beautiful Anthony. Thank you so much for tonight. Thank you, Kim,
you're
as
so
well,
welcome. Lovely to see you. Eleni and I, Eleni was in my class, and then we did this great Meisner masterclass together not too long ago.
Yeah. I'd love to ask you this because I always just find it really interesting listening to different people's opinions and ways of working. But I'm also, I think it's something that I'm ongoingly changing up. And so I'd love to hear from, your experienced self. What's something that you have kind of worked towards that you always do in auditions or when prepping for an audition, when you first get it through? Because I know there's lots of things that I'll try and work on, and then you don't quite nail in the audition, so you think, okay, I'll take that on board for next time. And I guess you've had so much experience that I'd love to hear. Have you got go-tos that you do when you get an audition piece through, or when prepping for something?
So you mean what tools do I often use again and again? Well, one of the things I try to do is I try to personalize it. So, I remember Miranda Harcourt. Some of you may know this wonderful New Zealand acting teacher, Miranda Harcourt, who I did a masterclass with last year. And she talked about acting being a fact-fiction sandwich. And what you're trying to do is pour as much fact into it and reduce the fiction. So if you're doing an audition for Avatar and you're playing a blue-skinned alien, like that's a lot of fiction. Like your brain goes, bullshit, bullshit. I don't believe that I'm a blue skinned, lizard and that my sister's got blue skin. Bullshit, bullshit. So if you have a lot of bullshit going on, you need to pour a lot of fact in that. And so what I do is I use, as you know, Eleni, I use one of the techniques of many of the techniques I use is substitution. And I will look at my blue skinned sister, who's my scene partner, and I'll see my own sister. Now she feels more tangible to me because I've got a real relationship with my own sister. So I've just poured a bit more fact into it. And that when I have that line of dialogue where I have to say in the audition, I lost my transfibrillator on the C337, I left it near Med Lab. It means nothing. It's so fictitious. Your brain just goes, bullshit, bullshit. I'll personalize that. I'll think about, okay, this character has lost something they really care about. And I'll think about my beautiful friend Rowena, who I used to teach with, who passed away a couple of years ago, and who I miss ongoingly. And I'll just say, I lost my transfibrillator on the C337 and I left it in a med lab. And I'm thinking of the cafe I used to go to with her in LA. See, I just personalized it. I didn't, if I just say lost my transfibrillator, my brain's going to go BS, BS, no connection. You're just saying words. So I'll personalize it. So I always look to how I can personalize the references in the script, the inner objects, the imagery. I'll try to personalize it. I'll try to find something tangible. And Miranda was saying there was this study that when people use real imagery from their real life, I can't remember the exact, I wish I had written it down, but she was saying something in terms of the believability factor goes up because people are using real stuff they can connect to. It doesn't mean you can't use your imagination, but imagination based on real stuff often has more mileage for believability. Like, still use your imagination. You don't have to always draw from your real life. But if I'm going to imagine I'm doing Chekhov and I'm in Russia, I might imagine my mother in that place in Moscow, because then it's more grounded in something real. Does that make sense?
That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you. I think sometimes with auditions, you forget that it's actually there's plenty of time to do that kind of work, and it's easy to kind of jump into other stuff and then cloud your mind when really you can just cement it in a few factual realities.
And yes, exactly. And then it's also important to make peace with how much time you have, because we always want more time, don't we? We always go, oh my God, I've got to learn a Southern accent and it's tomorrow. So we need to learn to be soft and gentle with ourselves and go, I have only 48 hours. That's all I got. So then what are my priorities? I would love to research the entire world around this play, but I haven't got time. So what's the most important thing? Okay, my objective, what I'm going after, so that I don't just play naturalistic and just, because auditions are about bringing drive to win. That's what makes you stand out. If you just sort of, like, it's like tennis. If you just hit the ball back and forth, like leisurely, like having a rally, okay, it's not bad acting, but we want to see the person who wants to win that freaking point, because their life depends upon it. So what's going to get you to the place where you're going to play that objective so that it really means something to you personally? And you just do as much work as you can do, and then you have to let go of it, because you can't do 15 months of work because you don't have 15 months. You just do what you can. Yeah.
Thanks, Eleni. Liz. And these are the last 3 questions. Where you go, Liz?
Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, all. Thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'll try to word it out in a way that makes sense. So how did you know that acting was for you? I feel like it's different to just wanting it. Like, how did you know throughout your journey that it was for you? And do you believe that there's a time frame in regards to chasing it as your main career?
I don't believe there's any time frame, because we're all different. And one person's time frame, like you were mentioning, Kim, oh, I'm 18, I'm over it. That's their time frame. And a time frame is just a narrative anyway, and it can change. A time frame is just a belief. It's not actually a set thing. So I don't believe there is any time frame, because sometimes people make a breakthrough later in life. Like, you look at Olympia Dukakis, who won the Academy Award for Moonstruck, playing Cher's mum. This is a woman who'd been doing theatre all these years, and at age 50, bang, she got this role, or maybe even later, and then it just took off for her. Look at Jackie Weaver. I was just watching her the other night in this fantastic film called Stage Mother, and look at her career. Like, she was doing all this work in Australia, and then bang, Animal Kingdom, and now she's international. Like, who's to say you have to do it by 32? There's no law. Thou shalt be an actor, a working actor by 32, otherwise thou shalt be smite by the god of acting. Isn't it? It's just like, whatever. If you love it, Liz, just follow the path of bliss. If you love it and it makes you happy and it makes you feel centered and good in your heart, that's probably an indication. If you're meant to, if you, and also obviously you've got to have enough self-awareness to know. I mean, that's where the question about feedback before, about rejection, it's important to see what, like what feedback you're getting. If you are getting a lot of feedback from your teachers saying you are so emotionally blocked and you really need to work on that to work, or then you got to listen to that, because maybe your craft is not up to the level where you can make your dreams come true yet. But I've worked with students who maybe were in a way less talented than other students who are more intrinsically talented, but the ones that were maybe less talented, and I'm putting that in quotation marks, who worked their asses off and were just so diligent, they're sometimes the ones who are having these amazing careers, and we've forgotten about the other ones who thought it came easy and didn't work at it. It's because if you work consistently at something, you're going to get better. Like if you work at script analysis all the time, of course your ability to choose objectives and break down a script and find the turning points and the beats is going to get better. If you work on your emotional instrument, of course your ability to access emotion is going to improve over time. So I would say, I mean, do you really love it, Liz? Can you imagine yourself doing anything else?
I can only see myself doing this.
You can only see yourself doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what could be happening is that maybe your craft has still some things to, sort out and strengthen in to get you across the line. But also your mindset might be you might be despairing in your mindset. And so when you despair in your mindset and you constantly, I'm not saying you are, but if you constantly play that song on the jukebox, what happens is the universe tends to create a disappointing reality. So you have to live. This is the question I want to ask you all. What kind of mindset would I need to have the kind of career I want? Like, what kind of ongoing daily mindset would I need to have the career I want? Because if you want, like, to work in Hollywood, as I have done, and then that's a pretty high level mindset you're going to need. But if your head is full of like, they'll never pick me, I suck, like no one's going to pick me, and I'm Asian anyway, or I'm, like if you have that kind of, or I'm gay and I can't come out and be honest about myself, and if you have that going on, that's not where Ryan Murphy lives, or Gary Oldman, or Jada Pinkett Smith. They don't live there, because I've talked to these people and I've asked them about their mindset. I've picked their brain about their mindset. Jada Pinkett Smith, who I worked with for 15 months, was like, I said, Jada, where did you get your positive mindset? She said, I grew up with a mother who said you could do anything you want. I just got this positive reinforcement, and I believe that women are powerful and we can have children and also be directors and actors. And so I was like, wow, well, it doesn't surprise me that you work so much, because that mindset. And I remember asking Nicole Kidman once, we were doing this accent class in Sydney, and this was before Nicole had made it big, and we were walking down Darlinghurst Road, going to pick up some lunch, and I asked her about her career, and she turned to me and she went like this. She went, I can't wait for Vietnam, this series that she was in, this mini-series by Kennedy Miller. I can't wait for that to come out, because when it does, I'm going to get a lot of work. And I remember hearing that and going, oh my God, what Australian says that? And I worked with her years later in 2012, and I raised that story with her. And she went, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. That sounds like I was so arrogant. She said the only reason I had such confidence in saying that was because I really felt like I could do anything with Kennedy Miller behind me, this production company. But the principle was true. It remains the same. She still had this incredible laser-like confidence at an early age. That's what I mean. What kind of mindset, what kind of thoughts do you need to think on a regular basis, which create the feelings you need on a regular basis from those feelings will cause the actions you need to take on a regular basis, because you don't go do a class if you have feelings that are saying, I suck and I don't deserve to even do a class. Then you won't do the class. See how one thing feeds the next thing? Thought first, thought creates feeling, feeling creates action or inaction. So that's what I mean. It's like some people are really talented, but their mindset sucks around their deservability and their worth, and around people, and that's where we've got to clean that up as much as we can. You know, we're not going to be perfect in that, but we've got to remember we're vast. We just saw that. I mean, Lisa, who's in the class auditing, you know, Lisa just was a judge at the Paralympics. I mean, my God, some of those people don't have limbs and they are achieving at the highest global level. You know what I'm saying? They're incredible. Their mindset is so strong about what they can achieve. It makes you cry, like how brilliant it is. Right? So I think that's one of the first things to really look at. If you want to do something, do the craft work diligently, but also do the mindset work diligently. And then you're unstoppable. And then have humility and continue to learn and continue to go to class. But don't forget that version of you that is just fucking magnificent. Oh my God, it's so beautiful and magnificent, and it never goes away. Even if you get really crazy and neurotic, it doesn't go away. It's waiting for you, going, hey Liz, remember how amazing you are. Can you remember that? I'm trying to talk to you all the time. Just listen to me. Sometimes we've made that loud neurotic voice the loudest voice, and that takes over, and we think that's the truth, and it's not. Does that help at all?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you very much, Liz and Anthony. And our last two questions for the evening.
Yes.
Isaac, you first, lovey, and then you, Saskia.
Hi, Anthony. How are you going?
Hi, Isaac. How are you? Nice to see you.
You too. You too. Thank you very much for spending your time and your energy with us.
You're so welcome.
I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit about this. As we go on our journeys through like acting and whatever creative pursuits that we go through, what are your tips on keeping our creative flow and inspiration alive?
I just think taking class is a great thing to do, because sometimes it's harder, you know, for some people it's harder to motivate on their own, and this is a collaborative art form. And right now during the pandemic, you've got unlimited opportunities, even free opportunities, like this Q&A, to just like educate yourself and to get inspired, like, you know, because actors have been so available during the pandemic. You know, in this last 17 months, I've done Q&As with Hugh Jackman, not me, like asking, like attending them, and Sam Neill, and I've done a masterclass with Miranda Harcourt, and I've done a lot of the 16th Street classes. That's a great way to keep on, you know, keep the energy going of inspiration. And you know, there's that 10,000 hour rule. Whether it's true or not, it's the rule of repetition. When you do something enough, it becomes something that's inhabited in your body. So I think that's one way to keep on. And then not just acting stuff. Like once we open up again, art galleries and dance performances, and like challenge yourself to read a book that, like I like this challenge of going to a bookstore and going to a completely different section than I would ever go to, and then buying a book from that section, like a section that was so far removed from what I would normally read, just to challenge myself. Or, you know, go onto Netflix and go, I'm going to watch a Western. I never watch Westerns. I'm going to watch a Western. Or I'm not into that kind of genre, but I'm going to watch that. Like there's so, like working on new monologues or updating your show reel, learning a new just getting together with a bunch of friends and reading a play on Zoom. Just go, let's read something from Harold Pinter or something from Carol Churchill and Joanna Murray Smith, who I know is going to be doing a talk soon, I believe. So you know, it's just like there's so many ways.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
very, very much. And Saskia, if I can finish with you, love.
Well, thank you, Anthony, for talking to all of us tonight has been,
Glass.
everything that you've said has been so inspirational and just like definitely taken it and just I'm holding on to it. But in particular, what you said, you don't have to be a hostage of your own mind. That really, really spoke to me. So thank you for that. And also thank you for talking about this whole COVID and, you know, just like bringing us back down to earth and like reminding ourselves how lucky we are, because on social media, you know, people posting about being in lockdown and, oh, like this time is so tough. But like seeing that all the time definitely like affects you, and you're kind of like, I don't want to say that at the moment. It's bothering basically, but hearing you talk about it and I don't know, it just brings us back to earth, and that was really, really nice. I do have a question, and it's basically the days that you're feeling down or flat or just really anxious, not in the good books, and you have either an audition or a class that day, what do you do to help those days?
There's a little exercise called the focus wheel, and it's an app you can download on your phone. Let me show it to you. It's a free app and it's great. I recommend it to so many of my students. And what it does is, I'll show you. I'll show you how to do it. So I'll see if I can. It looks like this. I'll just bring up. Let me see. I'm just going to show you an example. Just hold, bear with me for 1 second. Just gonna, okay. So, you know, what you do is you put, it's a app, it's on your phone, and in the green circle, you put your intention, like, I want to feel better about this audition. And then in the 12 quadrants around the circle, you put a thought that will help slowly edge you in that direction. So I'm feeling crappy about this audition, okay, and I'm resonating at discouragement right now, but I want to resonate at gratitude, but I'm not there yet. So I slowly move my thoughts from discouragement to in the direction of gratitude. And you don't do it overnight. You might, you know, this exercise can change your mood in like minutes if you let it. So you might go, I'm feeling discouraged. Okay, so then you write in the first quadrant, you type in, okay, I'm feeling discouraged, but through focus, I could feel differently. And then in the second quadrant, you put in, okay, I'm not feeling like it right now, but that could all change in a couple of minutes. And then so you constantly put another better feeling thought in each quadrant until and then you keep going and you go, I felt like this before, but remember that last audition I did and I didn't feel great at first, but then I felt fantastic. And then you think, I'm so lucky to have even audition. And wow, I get to practice my craft today. And wow, I'm going to get to do a British accent. How cool is that? And the research for this role is so interesting. And then what you do is you edge yourself slowly to a better feeling story on this subject matter around how you're feeling about this audition. So it's something you can consciously do with the help of the focus wheel. If you don't have the focus wheel, you just do it on a piece of paper. You go, this is what I'm feeling. You can even do it with people. Say you're really angry at someone and you think that person is a shit. You know, like Levi is a shit. Okay, that's what your thought is. And you're resonating at anger. And then you think, but I don't want to feel that about Levi because Levi's my brother. So then you go, so what you do is you write 20 thoughts that slowly take you in the direction of feeling better about Levi. And you might not forgive him by the end of the 20 thoughts, but you at least give yourself some relief from just being tight with anger. So you might go, Levi is a shit, okay? And you go, then the first thought you write is, Levi's not really a shit, he's just behaved badly, okay? And the second thought is, you know, Levi's still my brother and I've been a shit to him sometimes. And then thirdly, what I want from me and Levi is I want to feel better about our relationship. And the fourth thought is that, remember that time Levi like bailed you out when you were needing some money for that acting course and he gave it to you? And then you go number 5 and you go, and there was that other time that Levi was really sweet because he came to see my play and it meant a lot. And then you go number 6 and then you just keep going. And by the end of like 15 minutes of doing that, maybe you don't want to bash Levi's head in anymore. You might still be angry at him, but you're a little less stressed about Levi. So that's what I mean about you taking action about our emotions. We don't necessarily have to go, okay, I've got a bad feeling, I'm just going to stay in that for the whole day. You can choose. You can go, well, maybe there'll be a day where, Saskia, where you'll want to let yourself feel what you're feeling that day and you don't want to change it, and that's totally valid too. Where you go, I feel crappy about this and I'm going to let myself feel it. It's like when people don't get a really coveted role they wanted, I don't say to them, like, okay, instantly feel positive. I go, ouch. Oh, I know you wanted that. Like, do you want to talk about it? And they might want to bitch about it for a bit. But the purpose of the bitching is so that you can move through the bitching to get to the better feeling place, not so you just stay in the bitching and make a religion of it. Like, bitch till you can get it off your chest so you can move to a better place. Does that make sense? That's the purpose of bitching. That's the purpose of venting, so that you can move up the emotional guidance scale to a better feeling place, which is all talked about in this book, Paskin has given the emotional guidance scale. There's 22 emotions, from gratitude and love at the top to despair and powerlessness at the bottom. And the purpose of this book is how to help you move back to where we intrinsically live, in our core, in the deepest part of our nature, which is that gratitude, the abundance, the love, the compassion, the love of life, etc. Does that help at all?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you can consciously cook the meal you want to cook. You don't have to just go, oh, it's all addled and I have to eat it. You go, now what ingredients do I want to cook this audition with? I want to cook it with some, the British accent's fun, that ingredient. And, I love doing the research on that period of history. That's yummy. And I'm gonna cook it. I'm gonna literally be the chef and choose. We're the directors. We're actors. Some of us in this may also be directors, but we get to be the scriptwriter of our life, and we get to choose how we want to script it. And it doesn't have to just happen to us. We can consciously intend it. That's the greatest strength of human beings, of our human species. We can consciously intend our reality. It doesn't mean we can change all the outside reality, but we certainly can consciously intend our narrative. So is it hard for Asian actors in Australia? I don't know. What narrative do you want to have about that? I certainly have a narrative that it's a wonderful time, and has been for a long time, to be Asian and Australian. It wasn't always, I didn't always feel that way. I sometimes had a crappy attitude about it, and I probably had a right to be, because things were less evolved. But that doesn't help you. It just makes you go deeper into that rabbit hole. What's the level of conscious use? What is the level of consciousness we need to have a better reality? What is the level of consciousness we need to have more gender parity? What is the level of consciousness we need to take better care of our environment? What is the level of consciousness we need to create a loving ensemble of actors? Like, what thoughts do I need to fill my mind with? What ingredients do I need to put in to make that reality manifest?
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Anthony, thank you so much.
I could talk till midnight, folks.
And I'm loving it. You're an absolute angel, but you've got to go and get on the couch with your blankie and your fella.
Yes.
Darling, there are a couple of things I just want to say. Everybody will send out an email about this, but on September the 17th at 4 p.m, Anthony is going to engage in a dialogue with Tony Ayres. And Tony Ayres, I would say, Anthony, would you agree with this, is probably one of the most prolific producers, showrunners in this country. And he's just, obviously, one of the things that he's done is I think the most successful Netflix series at the moment, Clickbait. Is that right, Anthony?
Clickbait, everyone. Go watch that on Netflix if you have Netflix, or just sign up for a free trial. It's so riveting. Yeah. So I'm going to be talking to Tony about Clickbait for sure. The number one most popular.
Anthony and Tony, they've been colleagues for many, many years. Anthony's worked with Tony a lot, and he very agreed to come and talk to us as a community. So I think it'll be really interesting hearing from somebody like that. And Anthony's going to run that little dialogue, which is great. So we'll let you know about that. The other thing is we're going to send out an email tomorrow with Anthony's contact details in case any of you, he is teaching online. So the boundary area doesn't have to be a hassle. And he's really managed to teach online incredibly successfully. He's a wonderful teacher, and he's one of only I think 3 in the country, Anthony, isn't it, of Chubbuck accredited teachers?
I think there's you, me, and there's Lindell, and then
Yep.
there's one other person I saw on the website who might be based out of New Zealand, I think.
Right.
There's not many of us, but yeah.
Anthony's a really skilled teacher, and he draws upon a lot of techniques in his work. And also, I think working with a teacher who's also a working professional actor is just a wonderful thing, because he's right there at the coal face. So that's that. And Anthony, will you come back next year and teach on our next full-time program?
I would love, I always love doing that. So
I know.
bring it on.
I know.
Bring it on, Mama Cass.
Absolutely, honey. Unfortunately, guys, we've got a few full-timers there whose mouths are agob because we went through the coronavirus. It didn't happen this time round, but we will revisit that next year when I'm sure we'll all be out of this experience. And there's more to talk about, but I want to conclude with something. It's a little offering to you. One of the films that I think is one of our great films by an Australian director called Peter Weir, called Dead Poets Society. I don't know if you've ever seen it. If you haven't, I highly recommend you watch it. It's the most beautiful film with Robin Williams, a young Ethan Hawke. And there's a scene in this which I think is so beautiful. These young men who are conformists and trying to kind of get ahead and be leaders of industry and get it right and do it the party line. And he comes in and he breaks it all open and gets them to really connect to poetry, which is kind of the language of the soul and the spirit. And it's just such a beautiful little moment. I'd like to play it for you and just listen to the last words that he says to those young men as a provocation. And I'd love to leave that with you as your provocation as you move forward. Quintus, do you mind sharing a screen and doing that with us?
Words and language. No matter what anybody tells you, words and ideas can change the world. See that look in Mr. Pitt's eye? Like 19th century literature has nothing to do with going to business school or medical school, right? Maybe. Mr. Hopkins, you may agree with them, thinking, yes, we should simply study our Mr. Pritchard and learn our rhyme and meter and go quietly about the business of achieving other ambitions. A little secret for you. Huddle up. Huddle up! We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. And the human race is filled with passion. Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. To quote from Whitman, "O me, O life of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish, what good amid these, O me, O life?" Answer, that you are here, that life exists and identity, that the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. The powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be?
Thank you, Quintus.
Oh my God.
Thank you. To all of you, I just wish you so well, Anthony. I'm so grateful for our friendship. I'm grateful that you have been a part of this studio since the beginning, and I hope you will always be. And I love you very dearly, and I just thank you, all of you, for joining and just tuning into a conversation that I think has the opportunity of actually bringing us closer to who we might be and connecting us to each other at a time where it's so easy to feel separated. So much love to you all. Anthony?
Thank you. I love you, Lula, and thank you for
Love
this
you too.
opportunity. And thanks everyone for tuning in and your brilliant questions. And all of this is temporary. This little thing we're going through. It's not little, clearly not little, but we're on the. I think we're moving through it. I think we are moving through it. We're stronger for it. and it's just inspirational. And one last thing I want to say, Kimmy, is just that sometimes in order to remember who we are, we have to be confronted with who we are not. And so bad behavior or our own bad, not bad, but our own less than savory thoughts that we have about ourselves and other people, we need to see those. We need to see the anxiety and the fear and all of that, so that we can remember who we really are, which is not that, which is unity and calm and peace and decency and integrity and truth and love, most important. But we need to see all these, behaviors in the world and in ourselves first, so that we can make a choice, and we can go, that's not really who I am. This is who I really am. And that's what Robin Williams was also articulating. What will be your verse? And when you believe in the goodness of us, you can produce a really beautiful verse. Thanks, Lula.
Thank you, gorgeous. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Love. Did you take a photograph, Brenna?
Thank you.
Yay! Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
You gotta take the cares away.